Buckle in, sports fans. You're listening to The William Haynes Show. The program will be starting in just a couple of minutes, so grab your popcorn and get ready to enjoy the show. While you're waiting, make sure you're following us on social media at WHBC Stream and staying tuned to WHBCStream.com. We're so glad to have you today on the program, and we'd love to hear from you. Drop us a line on Twitter or call the show 352-639-0036. And thanks again for tuning in.
HBC. Well, it is a very good evening to you, and how you be. William Haynes here, you there. Here on this Thursday night at 8:02. We are live from the WHBC studio in Tallahassee, Florida. So great to be back and have all of you listening to the program here on this Thursday night. We are just a couple of days away from the beginning of Ray's spring training exhibition games. The first game will be this Sunday, that is the 28th. They're going about 20-minute bus ride from the facility in Port Charlotte to take on the Braves, again at 1 p.m. And for any of you interested in purchasing tickets for Ray's spring training, I guess I'll toe the company line, doing a favor for the Rays. It's available, I guess, where the tickets are sold now on the official, MLB websites. You know how to get there. Spring training tickets go on sale to the public officially Friday, which is tomorrow at 10 a.m. They have had tickets sold to season ticket holders and I guess insiders and things like that. There's only going to be 1,100 fans, which is about 14% of 7,600 that stadium can hold. So 1,100. So they will go like hotcakes. If you have interest in going to games, make sure you jump on that again, 10 a.m. tomorrow. It looks like I saw a screenshot. I mean, tickets are not too bad. I think 30 or so, depending on where you are. If you want the box seats or out in the outfield, wherever you want to be. So that is very exciting. The game on Sunday will be on the radio. We don't have any announcement yet as to the TV schedule. Fox Sports Sun, which is now going, it's undergone a rebrand, I should say. It's on the. I can't remember what it's called, but apparently they sold, whoever owns the Fox Sports regional networks, they were sold, but they were going under the name of Fox Sports, Sun, whatever. So I guess maybe that'll come with the rebranding. We'll get a schedule. Doesn't look like Sunday's game will be on TV, but you can stream it. It'll be on WDAE if you live in the Tampa Bay market or anywhere in Florida where they're simulcast. And you can also, something I did last season and I'll do again, on the MLB app, it's like a couple bucks, I think a month, and you get the hometown radio calls, which I really enjoy with Dave and Andy. So that'll be great to hear from all that. So what we have for the program tonight, just getting more and more ready for this season, knocking off the rust, if you will, with this show, getting back in the groove of the first show we had. Last week was a lot of fun, and hopefully we'll be able to have some more callers. We'll take some calls in a little bit. There's some news and some rumblings and some things that I missed last week that I want to get out of the way first, and then we'll hopefully take some calls, maybe talk a little bit of Lightning, talk a little bit of Buccaneers. Tom Brady underwent surgery a little while ago. It looks like he'll be ready for training camp, but just something to keep our eyes on. And then, by the way, for the Lightning, the second period is just underway in Amalie Arena. They are down 1-0 to the Carolina Hurricanes, who they shut out last night. So hopefully they'll be able to come back and continue the nice little winning run that they've been on. So before I get any of that out of the way, one thing that I wanted to start off the show with, I heard it on today's edition of Sports Day Tampa Bay with Rick Stroud, and it's a podcast the Tampa Bay Times produces where they talk about Tampa Bay sports. And kind of the question they started the show with, submitted by a listener, was a must-win game. They didn't clarify, which sport, which team, which players. So I guess really looking at it through a vacuum. In a must-win game, who would you want to coach out of, the Tampa Bay sports coaches? Bruce Arians, of course, of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Kevin Cash, the manager of the Rays, and John Cooper, the head coach of the Tampa Bay Lightning, and Rick Stroud, and of course he covers the Bucs. He goes with Bruce Arians, and the guy he had on the show who covered the Lightning for a while went with John Cooper. And I thought that was just a really interesting question to look through, just as a lens of I guess just pure coaching. Not necessarily that has to do with sports specifically, although I think that really is a big part of answering that question. If you were to ask me, I would say hands down, absolutely Kevin Cash. Even compared to those other two coaches, which have won championships this past season, Kevin Cash, of course, did not. He did win the American League, but not the World Series. Again, more Kevin Cash, I guess, being underrated. How long he's going to keep taking flack for Game 6 and Blake Snell, and we'll get into Blake Snell's Player Tribune article in a little bit. But I would go Kevin Cash. There was a big part of the Moneyball, the book and the movie, which I referenced so much, and it really has a lot to do with the Rays and how they run their franchise. I think taking some inspiration from that model of, obviously you don't have the money to compete with the Yankees, but you still need to compete with them, so other avenues. Cost per win, Kevin Cash, no matter which way you splice the numbers, Kevin Cash will go down in the history of Major League Baseball as one of the best managers in terms of price spent per win. When you look at the payroll, it's pretty simple, total payroll divided by number of wins in a season. If we can win as much games as the Yankees in a season with $100 million less, obviously that's a huge difference, and I think that's the best way, I think, to describe Kevin Cash. Greatness is a word that I don't know is right to use in this situation, but I'll use it. Maybe he wins a championship before you start calling him great. But he is a fantastic manager of the year in the American League last season, and just what he can do with so little. The Rays do have a good team, but by no means are up to snuff with the Yankees and Dodgers in terms of pure talent, and I mean mostly on the offensive side of the ball. The lineups between those teams are not necessarily comparable, but they are able to hang in with those teams. So things Kevin Cash does in game, I would put him ahead of those other coaches. Bruce Arians, I think he was perfect for this situation with leaders and on the team already with Tom Brady and Levante David, JPP, guys on the defense as well, and the great assistant coaches that he brought with him. Bruce Arians could kind of just sit back and do his thing and observe and make minor adjustments here or there. But in a must-win game, a little aggressive for my taste, although it did pay off in this season, and did not have a great postseason record before coming with the Bucs. And then with John Cooper, did win the Stanley Cup last year, and he will go down, I think, as probably the best coach in the history of the Tampa Bay Lightning, ahead of John Tortorella. But there was conversations of the Lightning firing John Cooper before they extended him, and of course he wins the Stanley Cup. And I was one of those people. I just thought he didn't have what it took to get the Lightning over the edge. They were in the playoffs and the Eastern Conference Finals for all those years. but couldn't get over the hump. And he is a good coach, does make good adjustments. But be interested to hear from some of you guys as well later in the show if you follow all the teams. But I would certainly put Kevin Cash number one in that best of three. And I just kind of wanted to lead off with that just to show some appreciation for Cash, everything that he does, because not necessarily that we take him for granted, but this Rays team would not be anywhere close to where it is without Kevin Cash. I think even with John Madden, there was a ceiling to where this franchise would go, and I think with the money there will always be kind of that ceiling, but I think Kevin Cash can kind of take that team to the even next level, and so excited for what this team will do in the coming future. So with that being said, get some of the kind of news items out of the way, some of the things that we are hearing from spring training and all that. A lot of reports. Mark Tompkin of the Times is down there doing his thing, so some good reporting from him. As I mentioned, the first spring training game is this Sunday against the Braves at 1 p.m., 14 home games in Port Charlotte, again on sale tomorrow at 10 a.m. 1,100 fans per game. It's about 14% of the 7,600 seats that the ballpark has. Most of the games will be against the Twins and Red Sox, who are both in Fort Myers, different facilities, but it's about an hour south of Port Charlotte, and the Braves, which is about 20 minutes away from Port Charlotte. So with the COVID protocol being what it was, they want to, with spring training and in the Grapefruit League in the state of Florida, in a regular spring training like it was in 2020 before the COVID outbreak, you're going down near Miami, to the other side of Florida, 4-5 hour bus rides depending on where you're coming from. And obviously that was not doable with the COVID protocols. It's hard to social distance in a bus unless you are going to have 20 of them, with I think the 77 guys that the Rays have in camp. So that's not necessarily doable. So they cut it down, and we'll be playing mainly the three teams, the Twins, the Red Sox, and the Braves. So we'll be quite familiar with them and their rosters by the time the month of March is over. And then a couple of games against the Orioles and Pirates, the Orioles in Sarasota and the Pirates in Bradenton, for anyone who's familiar with their Florida geography. So, and that's about, I believe, an hour north of Port Charlotte. So I'm keeping the bus rides relatively short. So if you're looking at the spring training schedule and you're asking, why are we only playing, 5 teams, basically, that's the explanation for that. Spring training games played between February 28th and March 13th are scheduled for only 7 innings. They could be shortened to 5 or lengthened essentially to a full 9-inning game. It's pretty easy, I guess, to see the reasoning in that. And I mentioned this on last week's show, and I'll bring it up again. This is an unprecedented level, and I hate that word just because it's been used so much lately. Going from in 2019 to a 162-game season, in 2020 to a 60-game season, and now back in 2021 to a 162-game schedule. We've never seen that before. That's never been done before. How these athletes' bodies will respond to this kind of thing, we have no idea. So, spring training, I think this is great. This should have been happening, I think, before. Maybe not the 7 innings because a lot of guys want to get time, but right now, trying to ease these guys back into this, and you don't want to overdo it before you even get to the regular season, because a 162-game season is always long. It's going to be even longer this season, so you don't want to have any guys burnt out before you even get to April 1st. So to have these 7-inning games, you can shorten them to 5 if you don't necessarily have the pitching that you want. I think that would be the main reason, would be pitching, because, you shouldn't have to be, who's going to get us innings in spring training. That is kind of ridiculous. And then I guess, obviously, they're going to be doing the COVID testing, so there are going to be some guys missing time, so that would play a factor in that as well. I doubt every spring training game is going to be played, and they're probably not going to do anything to reschedule them. I think you just take the day off and back at it again tomorrow. You're not going to go back and do doubleheaders or anything like that, of course. The only caveat to this, again, February 20th to March 13th, 7-inning games could be shortened to 5 or lengthened to 9. March 2nd, at Boston and Fort Myers, that game broadcasted on ESPN, so of course it'll be a full 9 innings. That's, just for TV purposes, so they'll play a full 9 for sure that day. And then games after March 13th are scheduled for 9 innings and can be shortened to 7. So we won't see those 5-inning games and maybe some more 9-inning games. So I'd imagine early until March 13th, a lot of 7-inning games, probably a couple 5-inning games. I wouldn't anticipate a lot of 9-inning games. That would probably come after March 13th. And then maybe right before the regular season, like the last week of March, maybe you see some 7-inning games. That's how I would anticipate it playing out, because you want to ease them into spring training, then get them used to those 9-inning games, and then right before the regular season, then you take your foot back off the gas, maybe just so your guys are fresh and healthy. I hope I remember the details. We talked about this last season. It was summer training basically, and it was shortened. They didn't play exhibition games, of course. It was just bullpens and scrimmages and that sort of thing. But I think after the 6-week mark of spring training, that I think that's correct. The pitchers kind of hit a wall. When you go a whole off season without pitching in games, obviously you're doing some conditioning and stuff. But then you're pitching. Every 5th day or whatever the case is, if you're a reliever every couple days, your arm kind of gets tired a little bit, and then you got to lay off the gas and take some time off to kind of let that not necessarily heal up, but let yourself recover. And then by the time you get into the regular season, then you're on that regular routine. So I think this all kind of plays into the hands of that, and I'm hoping we won't have as many injuries as we did in 2020. I think that'll be hard to kind of achieve just because of how many more innings are going to have to be covered, but hopefully a longer spring training compared to last year will kind of help pitchers get eased in a little bit, and it won't be as extreme of conditions. So that's the hope there, and that's the deal with spring training games as of right now. And of course we know everything is subject to change. A couple of signings made by the Rays and a couple more that were made official that we already had gotten word of. Chaz Rowe, he signs a 1-year deal for $1.15 million. He's been with the team for a while. He was a free agent. I guess it tested the market for quite some time, obviously from the end of October into where we are right now in late February. It looked like he kind of wanted to be with the Rays all along. Boston had shown some interest, so Chan Bloom was familiar with him, and I guess did not garner a whole lot of interest. He's 34 years old, and this will be his 5th season as a Ray, which is kind of hard to believe. He's one of the longest tenured Rays at this point, I guess behind maybe Kevin Kierme and not many more, honestly, that you think about it. So Rays not known to have a lot of older guys. They prefer to go with the youth movement, but I think this year, I think the Rays viewed this season kind of as a bridge between right now and the future. There's going to be a lot of guys on both sides of the ball, a lot of young pitchers coming up, and a lot of position player prospects. It seemed like we kind of had a stopgap the last couple seasons as far as position player prospects, but now they're really going to be coming in droves. So you bring in some of these older guys to get you through 2021, and then in 2022 and beyond, you're going to have some of those younger guys. So I think that would kind of explain the 1-year deal for Chaz Rowe. I would imagine this is probably his last season as a Ray, but great to see him back. We know about his nasty wipeout slider and a fastball that's not too shabby either. With the Rays, he has a 3.54 ERA over 151 appearances. Last season, he had a 2.89 ERA and 9.1 innings pitched before an elbow injury. I believe that was August 19th against the Yankees, and he was done for the year. There was no ligament damage in his elbow, although he did have season-ending surgery. So it looks like he's recovered from that. Anytime you're ready to start spring training, which I believe he is, you're going to be ready at the gate for the season, so he'll be a part of that bullpen on the right-handed side. So that'll be good to have him back. Kind of a steady presence. I wouldn't necessarily consider him an extremely clutch player, anyone I want to have pitching in the back end of games, but I think he's always kind of been a 6th or a 7th inning guy when you look through a traditional lens, as other teams do. Obviously, the Rays, the highest leverage situation is what matters, but a kind of guy you don't want necessarily closing, but can get you some a couple of outs after your starter leaves the game. And then the Colin McHugh signing was finalized as well. 1 year, $1.8 million. He is 33 years old this year. Throughout his career, which is kind of split right down the middle, he has 119 starts and 210 total games pitched. So his starts and outings out of the bullpen are about the same at this point. In his career, he's got about 800 innings pitched, so he's getting up there in that regard. 58-43 record, a 3.95 career ERA, 771 strikeouts compared to 232 walks. So his walks to strikeout ratio is pretty good. That's why I pointed that out. And we did talk about this on last week's show, but just wanted to serve as a reminder. In 2019, with the Houston Astros, 8 starts in 35 total appearances, a 4-5 record, 4.70 ERA in 74 innings, 82 strikeouts, 30 walks. So the ERA and the record not as good, but the strikeouts compared to the walks ratio was about the same. So that really is his game. Was a part of that. Was a member of the 2017 Astros. I believe, right, that the sign stealing scandal. He was one of the guys in the report after that showed remorse for being a part of it, not speaking up, and all those things. But of course, his name will always kind of be tied to that. So that's just, it's on his Wikipedia page. I'll just say that it's one of those things that kind of will stay with him. But looks like a good addition, for the price that you're getting him at. Opted out of the 2020 season. He had a 1-year deal with the Red Sox. He had arm issues, and he looked like he wasn't going to be ready in time. So he just opted out of the season. And I'm not sure if they foregone salaries or not. You would think maybe they did, but I'm not exactly sure. As far as his spin rate goes, and this was one thing I guess that that they thought highly of him. His spin rate is comparable with the Chaz Rose slider, which we mentioned as such a good pitch, and the spin rate on the same level as the Tyler Glasnow curveball. So that some good off-speed pitches, and usually for relievers, you have a fastball and maybe one other pitch. Sometimes not even that. So I think Colin McHugh, a guy that had to survive as a starter for so long, those guys can be particularly tricky out of the bullpen just because there's more things that they can throw at you. He threw his slider 43.4% of the time in 2019, so that looks to be one of his primary pitches. Probably throws it just as much as he throws the fastball. His fastball averaged 91 miles an hour, so better than a guy like Ryan Yarbrough who's pushing high 80s. But in the back end where you want kind of the flamethrowers, certainly is not going to give you that. Against his sliders, hitters batted 175 with a 40% whiff rate in 2019. So some really good stats against that. It'll be interesting to see because we did not see him at all in 2020. So maybe he could be fresh. Maybe he's going to have some rust to knock off, and the spring training will be a really good chance to do just that. I pointed this out on last week's show, and I wanted to bring it up again as well, just to kind of give you an idea of the money part of how the Rays operate. The Rays could have kept Charlie Morton for $15 million if they had picked up the 1-year option on his contract, but instead they signed all of these players. Chris Archer, 1 year for $6.5 million. Michael Wacha this year for $3 million. Rich Hill for $2.5 million. Colin McHugh for $1.8 million. And all four of those guys equal $13.8 million. So the fact that they're getting all that value for the same amount of one player in Charlie Morton, who did not give the Rays a ton in the regular season last year. We know what he did in the postseason. That Game 7 against the Astros, I think, will be part of what defined his Rays tenure. 2 years it was short. I would say probably the wild card start in Oakland in 2019, and also Game 3 of that ALDS, as well as what he did. The postseason last year was great for Charlie Morton across the board. I think the World Series start was a little shaky, but that Game 7 against Houston was huge. Who knows how that game goes if he was not unhittable that night. So, but anyway, they got a little bit off track there. The point is, Colin McHugh, one of those guys, they had to cut down kind of on money, so I think you're going to get a whole lot more of him than maybe that $1.8 million worth in compared to the $15 million that Morton would have made. So excited to see him, and one of those guys that obviously we haven't seen in a Rays uniform that we look forward to seeing in spring training. So that about does it for the big news, and we'll have some kind of spring training rumblings coming up a little bit later. But now I wanted to talk about whatever you want to call it, the article that came out in the Players Tribune that was penned by Blake Snell. Obviously, there was an editor or something probably that it went through, but you can tell anyone who's read it did a good job. His voice definitely came through, his style. It's a really interesting read. It came out, I think, a handful of hours before I went on the air last week, so I didn't get a chance to look through it, but I did read it doing the prep for this show, and I would for anyone who hasn't read it, go ahead and read it. I can read you a little bit of an excerpt here. Let's see. So here we go. This an excerpt from the letter. I've got some things to say from Blake Snell. All right. So throughout the whole game, I'm super focused. I know what the Dodgers hitters are looking for. I know what pitches to throw each dude who comes up, and I know exactly where I'm going to locate those pitches. Everything's clicking. I basically have to keep doing what I'm doing. Then I'm jogging to the hill to start the sixth, and in the distance, I see Anderson out there in the bullpen warming up. It's like, what the heck? In my head, I'm like, man, I'm making history out here. I've never been this good against such a great team. Why is this man warming up right now? And of course, I've been around for a few years now, so I've seen this scenario play out for our team, including in the postseason. I know what's up. I'm really about to be taken out of this game. This is really happening. In a split second, that's all I'm thinking about. I can't help it. I'm no longer thinking about how I'm going to start off A.J. Pollock that inning, or what I know Mookie will be looking for when he comes up. None of that. Now I'm thinking about how I'm going to get pulled from the biggest game of my life. He went on to talk about basically that, and it was part of that, what I read. He wasn't necessarily focused on how to attack those hitters to the best of his ability. He was just thinking, if I give up even just a shallow blue pit, I'm coming out of this game. So the focus did kind of change. He admitted that Nick Anderson warming up in the bullpen did get to him. It's one of those things. I've played sports. Obviously not at the professional level, and not at the championship level that Blake Snell was in. But one of the things that you learn for anyone who's played sports even at a young age is you can't let that kind of stuff bother you. I know baseball is such a mental game. I was mainly a football player, so that's of course different. But in the middle of a game like that, you really can't let that kind of stuff get to you. And Blake Snell did admit that. But and I think the Rays knew that about him, and I think that's part of why they moved on from him. I don't think they were actively seeking to trade him, although they weren't mad about getting that $10 million off of their payroll. They knew they were going to have to cut costs, and if Blake Snell wasn't dealt, I can guarantee you it probably would have been Kevin Kierme playing in a St. Louis uniform, or I don't know, Team XYZ that needed a center fielder. But Blake Snell was a really good pitcher, won the Cy Young Award in 2018, but in 2019 and really in 2020, we saw the limits to his game. His mentality, I think, is really something I hate to say it's a detriment because obviously we're all different and we all, all these guys play differently, but he's got a mentality on the mound where he doesn't even want, he hates guys even fouling off or even getting the bat, touching the ball. He hates that. He wants you to swing and miss at every single pitch that he throws. He hates anyone making contact off of him. So when he's on the mound, he throws these, curveballs and sliders way in the dirt that can't be hit, and then you see 110 pitches, and he's not even out of the fifth inning, and you got to make the move to the bullpen and all that, and you may not have given up any runs, but then you've got 4+ innings that you have to cover instead of maybe 2 or 3. So, and then not to mention this in Game 6 and how he reacted to being taken out of the game. I think not necessarily that he complained, and he said that he had no ill will against Cash. Obviously, why would he? But that's at the back of your mind when you're thinking about a story like this coming out. But the Rays need guys that when they come out for the 6th inning of basically an elimination game in the World Series, and they see someone warming up on the bullpen, you can't let that get to you. I guarantee you Charlie Morton probably didn't care. He wasn't thinking about it. He was just trying to get the guys out that were coming up to face him. And I brought the scorebook out just to kind of remind myself of that situation. He had thrown 5 innings, basically perfect ball, gave up 1 hit, but that was it. And came out in the 6th, got A.J. Pollock to pop out to second base, and then the 9-hitter, Austin Barnes, the catcher, came up and hit a single off of him. So then you got a man on first with 1 out, and the Rays were up 1-0 in that game in the 6th. And Mookie Betts was coming up. The lineup was flipping over. The 1-2-3 hitters, Betts, Seager, and Turner, were all 0 for 2 with 2 strikeouts against him. So Snell had shown he could dominate against those guys, but the third time through the order penalty and all those things that the sabermetricians these days will talk about. Kevin Cash, makes the move to Nick Anderson, their best reliever, who at that time really was out of gas. Probably could have seen someone else there, but that move does not end up working out. We all would have loved to see what Blake Snell could have done, but maybe if he doesn't give up that hit to Austin Barnes, and gets out number 2, then they let him face Betts and get out of that 6th. And then from there, who knows? So that's kind of my piece on that. And later in the article, he talks about how he wanted to kind of let the events that took place air out before talking to Kevin Cash, but he did want to have a conversation with Cash about letting him go deeper into ball games. That he wanted to help the team and do whatever it took to help the Rays win, and that he could show that he could go deeper into games. And then before he could have that conversation, he was going to wait until spring training. He was dealt to the Padres, and that was that. He talked about what it was like the day of getting the call from Neander. He said he was sad the day that he got dealt. He had been basically in the Tampa Bay area. I'm not sure if he lived there, obviously, when he's playing for the Montgomery Biscuits or the Durham Bulls or whatever. But he had been with that organization for 10 years, essentially since he had graduated from high school. So he really kind of grew up with this organization. And so it's understandable you never want to see yourself traded away from that team. So... and I thought that was good to see. You would hate to see it like, I don't know if there's an example of this maybe, but, Tommy Pham maybe to an extent that they were kind of happy to be traded away from the Rays, and because Pham had said, criticized the fan base and the attendance and all that. So kind of a weird thing, but you almost like to see that he didn't like to get dealt and that he would have rather stayed with Tampa Bay. And then he ended basically saying the Padres will be good and a fun team and all that, and yeah, they'll be good. I'm not sure. I don't think they'll win the National League West. I think the Dodgers will still have that locked up, but the Padres, I think, a really interesting story about the only team in Major League Baseball right now in such an uncertain time that are pushing their chips to the middle of the table. And then one other thing in that article that was just so interesting, Blake Snell's dad, I guess, was his coach coming up through Little League all the way up until when, I don't know, but Blake Snell said he had never seen his dad cry in his entire life, not even when his own mom died. And Snell FaceTimed his dad after that game, Game 6 of the World Series where the Rays were eliminated. And his dad, as soon as he picked up, the FaceTime, he was bawling. He had never seen his dad cry in his life. And that moment, I guess, his dad knew how important that moment was to his son, to be bawling like that. It's just interesting, and not necessarily to make any kind of point, but again, definitely would encourage you to read that article, or the letter, whatever you want to call it. I think I'm kind of glad that he did it. I was concerned a bit when it was released, and I was just hoping that he didn't kind of smash the Rays, which he didn't. He was very kind, I think, towards his experience in Tampa Bay and all those things. I think, if anything, it kind of revealed that there was always going to be that issue with him and the Rays, and that I think bottom line, they weren't necessarily good fits. He was never going to be that guy that he was in 2018, at least not with the Rays, because of his mindset. In 2018, a lot of those times where he could go deep into ball games and pitch effectively at that Cy Young level, he's just, I'm going to give you this fastball down the zone. You can swing at it, you're not going to hit it, or you can take it for a strike, and that's how you got to get out of innings quickly and get deeper into ball games and all that. And then something flipped where he didn't throw the fastball as much. I don't know why you go into the offseason after winning the Cy Young Award and decide to change your approach. I will never understand that. And maybe San Diego, being a more traditional approach, will get him maybe to throw more fastballs. We'll see. The National League historically is known for having more fastballs compared to off-speed stuff. I'm not sure if that really holds up anymore, but that's kind of been the way Major League Baseball has operated. I guess maybe without the DH, I don't know exactly. But Snell will have that chance to kind of be the pitcher he wants to be. And I had mentioned this on last week's show, and we had a caller call in and kind of agree with me that San Diego, they're going to let him do what he wants to do. He's going to pitch into the 6th, maybe the 7th inning, and he's going to throw 120, 130 pitches probably in a start. I don't know about this year or at the beginning, but eventually at the pinnacle of his time in Mustard and Brown, that's what he's going to be doing. And that it's not sustainable. I hope he doesn't get injured or anything. But the Rays were never going to let him do that. If you have 100 pitches and you can't get out of the 5th inning, you're going to be taken out, and we've got a bulk guy that can get innings, and then we'll go to our bullpen and whatever. But we're not going to let you just throw 130 pitches. We need you in October. We need you staying healthy, all that stuff. So, and again, the Rays weren't going to let him see the third time through the order as much. San Diego will just let him play. He's going to be the ace of that staff, probably ahead of Yu Darvish, and they're just going to kind of let him do his thing. So, just a really interesting letter, and look forward to watching Snell pitch in Petco Park and with the Padres. But I think the further away we get from this trade, I think the more thankful we should be for the haul that we got. I think it's unquestionable that San Diego overpaid. The two catchers that we got, Francisco Mejia and Blake Hunt, who people have reached out and told me he's the real prize, at least between those two catchers in that deal, and he's the real kind of catcher of the future, and Mejia may just be the stopgap between Zunino and Blake Hunt. And then, of course, bringing in Luis Patino, and they got one other pitcher, I believe, in that deal as well. So you got an absolute haul in return, and I think they'll be fine. On paper, the loss of Snell and Morton hurt, but I think they've done such a great job of bringing guys in, and I think in this 2021 season, where you're going to need to rotate pitchers even more, I think it's honestly just for the best. You don't have to worry about Blake Snell. Why am I being taken out in the 3rd or 4th inning? Let me just pitch, man. You let me go. That's kind of been his mentality. He's kind of pushed back a little bit on the Rays way. I would rather have a guy like Rich Hill, who he's going to be fine. He's going to get you the innings that you want, and he's going to be fine with the system that Kevin Cash has laid out. And the plan can unfold as planned. So that's my piece on it, and a really interesting report. And now moving on, we're going to talk about some spring training rumblings and news and that kind of thing, and then we'll take a break and come back and take some telephone calls. And then, right now it looks like right at the end of the second period, the Lightning and Hurricanes are tied at 1. The Lightning also have a power play, so hopefully they can take the lead there. So stuff out of spring training. Most of this is from Mark Tompkin, both on Twitter and some of the stuff in Tampa Bay Times, so give that credit to him. Does some great work covering the race. Kevin Kierme says he's okay with the offseason moves, which, you hope to see. Quote, "We're going to have a great team." He was pleased with how excited and in shape his teammates were. It looks like a lot of these guys, they didn't rest on their laurels. They really wanted it to improve that much more, falling just short of their ultimate goal in the 2020 season, and striving to get just a little bit better because the other teams in your division certainly got better, so you're going to need to as well if you have eyes on winning the American League East in 2021. And the reason I included that from KK that he's okay with the offseason moves, he said something, I don't recall exactly what, but at the end of I think the World Series, basically just kind of taking a little bit of a slight at the way the Rays operate, and that maybe we aren't going to be as good at next year, and would have liked to see how it would have gone with Snell on the mound and all that stuff. So I was anticipating some animosity, and maybe Kierme anticipating that he was going to get dealt, but he stays, and he said some things like when he talked about calling Neander about if he was going to get traded, and he was saying, I'm happy to have this beautiful logo on my shirt. So it looks like he's going to say all the right things from this point because he knows the ice is pretty thin. He's got his house and his family here and everything. So, he's going to do everything he can to stay in the good nature of this organization. So I thought that was interesting. Kevin Kierme and Willie Adames, they both thought if they were going to get dealt. Apparently, there was rumors that Adames could have been traded to Cincinnati, and of course he wasn't. They both talked to Neander, apparently, and he assured them, I guess, that they were going to stay on the team. I wouldn't be surprised if Kierme gets traded before the deadline. That's obviously still in play. That's still $11.5 million that they don't necessarily like having on their payroll. I think Adames, and we've talked about this at length before, I don't understand the saying, people saying that he doesn't have a future here with the team. I understand there's all kinds of infield prospects coming in between Wander Franco and Fidel Brujan and Xavier Edwards and all those other guys. But I think the future of this team is you keep Adames at shortstop, and Franco, who's come up, I guess, at shortstop, you move him to third base. My guess is that would be the plan. It's kind of like a Jeter and A-Rod thing is what I've always compared it to. Adames kind of is, he's your shortstop. He's kind of the captain of your team in some ways, and he anchors that infield, and you always see him, facilitating discussions between the pitcher and the catcher and all those things that a shortstop is supposed to be. I don't see him leaving. I don't see him being dealt. If he's willing to stay here, maybe at a bit of a discounted price, I don't know. With his offense being as it was last year, I'm not sure the market for him is too incredibly high. So they could probably keep him around at a reasonable price. So I don't see him getting dealt anytime soon. I'm glad he wasn't. I look forward to seeing him, and I think for a team that's anchored on run prevention and pitching and defense, Adames is a guy that you want on your team. So kind of not great that he was worried about his future, but glad he's still here. Adames was talking a lot to Wander Franco. This is Wander's first spring training, I guess, with the big league squad. He'll be 20 years old at the start of March. It's kind of hard to believe how young he still is. Adames is telling him to relax and don't do too much. That was the advice that Adames had received when he first started with the major league club in spring training. So one got to the next. Interesting to see there. There's going to be the first month of spring training or I guess that would be the first couple weeks, the first half of spring training to evaluate the pitchers, all the new additions before structuring the rotation. They haven't said anything as to what they're going to do with openers, and there may not even be a rotation anymore. I mean, you may have Glass now and Yarbrough and maybe Archer that starts every fifth day, but maybe you have a six-man rotation or something like that, or after those three guys that I mentioned, you just get innings and maybe tandem starts and that sort of thing. Maybe Waka and Rich Hill both give you 3 innings on the same day or whatever. So they're going to kind of wait. Eric Neander and Kevin Cash did what I guess their kind of press conference at the start of spring training. So that was kind of one of the things that was brought up, and that appears to be the plan. So interested to see these first spring training games, to see these pitchers get in the groove, and as the Rays kind of this is the best time, I think, to experiment before the games start counting against your record, to kind of see how you want to do things. As expected, there's no timetable for Wander Franco coming up to the big leagues. Just your reminder, your public service announcement. He has not played a game above the A level, and he is just 20 years old. He will be turning 20 next Monday, March 1st. So he's still really young. It's hard to believe, how young he is and how long he's been in this organization. I think he was like 16 when he signed with the the international program. So not to rush him. Had people that expect him to be if they do the traditional September call-ups in 2021, I wouldn't be surprised, between service time and all that stuff, and they seem determined to let him progress at a natural level. There's not necessarily a reason to bring him up really early just because you want to see him play. Let him just be a prospect and go through the process from single A to Montgomery and double A and Durham and triple A. Just let him do that thing, maybe a season or half a season at each level, and hopefully by maybe 21 to 23 he'll be ready to start contributing at the big league level. Expect Yoshi Tsutsugo to be more comfortable. He's cut weight. Looks like the bat is moving a bit quicker, which is a good sign. I've been kind of a Yoshi skeptic, just because of his having such a difficult time hitting the fastball in 2020. I didn't realize he had, I think it was 8 or 9 home runs and just 51 games played and over 50 RBIs. So his power numbers were good. Did not hit for average very well, but did see the baseball well in terms of working walks and things. Him and Yandy Diaz kind of in the same boat of they weren't necessarily hitting very well, but they were at least working their walks. So as long as you're getting on base, you can work with the rest. So it'll be interesting to see him in year 2. That 2-year, $12 million deal. We don't give $6 million to just anybody, of course. So obviously they have high expectations for him. He's going to continue to play third base, and what I've been waiting for, and I'm glad they said it just so now that we know, he's going to be playing some first base here. That's what he did mainly in the Japan League. He was their first baseman. He was their slugger, their captain, really that traditional kind of first base type. And I think there was some question marks, I think, when Nate Lowe got traded to the Rangers as to what was going to be the future of the first base position. Obviously, the fan favorite Choi is going to stay the starter, and I think in the depth chart you're going to have Yoshi Tsutsugo also from the left-handed side, and you're going to have Yandy Diaz who can play first as well as third from the right-handed side with the bat. So I think those 3 guys will make up the first base position, and I look forward to hopefully seeing Yoshi there at first. I don't think he's athletic enough to play third, and I definitely did not enjoy watching him in left field. So it's not sensible to DH him every time just to get his bat in the lineup. So I think first base, to give Choi a day off here and there, I think will be a great way to get him some more playing time here in 2021. The outfield will remain crowded. We know all the names that are in there. Kevin Cash said that things will work themselves out. So, it is kind of a non-answer, but I think if you look into it, which is what he always does when, there's new incoming players or a logjam at a position. I remember, guys like Daniel Robertson in the infield. He's going to give guys chances, and whoever ends up playing better will get the job, and the guy who doesn't will end up, on the way out or, whatever. I don't think, aside for Brett Phillips, I'm not sure there's anyone that has minor league options left. I don't think Margot does, so I think that alludes to a potential Kierme trade sometime this season, and then you go a Margot, Brett Phillips platoon maybe in center field. You're going to have a Arozarena in one corner and probably Austin Meadows in the other corner, and then you still have other guys that you want to get time. So they've got, I think 5 or 6 outfielders at the moment, and some other guys that can play outfield. So we'll see how that works out. Again, I keep saying I think Kiermaier is going to be on the way out sooner than later, and we'll see how that plays out. There are 77 players on this camp roster, which is a team record. They have 76 in 1999, which was just their second year in Major League play. So I think that that just goes to show you, how difficult the season is going to be to maneuver. It's going to take a village, even more so than it did last year. Guys are going to get hurt. You're going to need to give guys time off just because they're not used to playing that 162. So brought in a lot of guys, a lot of spring training invites that won't make the team. You're going to have to cut down to 26 eventually, but they want to take a look at a lot of guys, and guys maybe they can add to their minor league system. And this is a note about Kevin Kiermaier, between 2014 and 2020, 19 players had a higher WAR, which is wins above replacement. It's a sabermetrics measure, if you weren't familiar, than Kevin Kiermaier. 19 players, better WAR than KK between 14 and 20. Kiermaier's, by the way, is 27.4. His salary is lower than 18 of them, so he's getting paid $11.5 million. I think he gets 12 next year in 2022. So when you look at it through that lens, the Rays still are getting Kiermaier at a good deal. The bat is frustrating to watch at times, but the defense has always been really good. He's continuing on his movement to hit more hard ground balls and line drives. It seemed, 2018 and earlier, it was all about kind of the home runs and the launch angle and falling into that trap that so many big leaguers do these days. But realized, I guess going into 2019, his best game is, let's get some singles and doubles and let, he's not necessarily a great base runner, but he's got great speed, which should make him a good base runner. So just get on base. That's always been what Rays fans have been calling for. Let him bunt and steal second. The Rays aren't going to bunt, but if he can hit some more singles, could be a weapon there in that regard. And there was also some stuff that he hurt his hand in the ALCS against Houston. He had to change his, swing in the World Series, and he batted like .350 with 2 home runs in the World Series. So it worked out. So look forward to seeing him. And that was just an interesting note that I wanted to bring up. Tyler Glasnow, his bullpen sessions, he's only thrown a handful of them, but they've garnered a lot of praise, which is a good sign. Any news that's not bad news, I guess, is good news, to put it really simply. He's working on a third pitch, which I'm really excited about. It's a slider-cutter mix. He's calling it a slutter. That's a pitch that most popular probably with Madison Bumgarner. His fastball, I think, does have some movement, but with the curveball being, movement along the vertical axis, if you will, he does need a pitch, I think, that has movement across that horizontal axis just to kind of give hitters something new to look at. He threw a changeup about less than 5% of the time last year. So I would love to see him get something that he's more confident with. I think that would be great. And spring training is the best time to do that. He messed with his windup, I think, going into 2020, the spring training, 1.0 before COVID, and I think he did in 2019 as well. So he's kind of changing some stuff. He's kind of simplified his release and everything, but I think a third pitch would be an absolute great addition, and especially if he's going to be the ace of the staff, you want a guy that has at least 3 pitches So that's something that'll be interesting to watch going into spring training. On the note of getting some more infield versatility, Brandon Lau will get some time at third base, which he has not yet. Brasso at shortstop, which they've talked about doing for a little while. The purpose of this flexibility mainly for in-game moves when you want to pinch hit or whatever. And instead of taking a guy completely out of the game, you can just move him over to third or move him over to shortstop. So that's something to look for. Again, there's no TV schedule yet for the spring training games, although 18 of them will be on the radio out of, I think, maybe 28 games. So 18 on the radio, 9 on WDAE, and 9 on MLB.com. So I'll definitely be listening to the game on Sunday. It'll be great to have Dave and Andy back on the radio, and Neil Solondz on the MLB.com side calling the games for them. Kevin Cash, he'll have a conference call with Boston, the Red Sox, the Braves, and the Twins, the teams mainly that they'll be playing, on whether to play 7-inning games or 9-inning games. All games until it was March 13th or so will be scheduled for 7 innings, can be increased to 9, and get the framework for innings on, sometimes you can end them early, if there's an error, I guess, or something like that, and just put in the third out and move on. So they'll get all that straightened out. The Sidewinder, left-handed pitcher who they brought in, veteran Brian Moran. He's been a challenge for lefties here in camp. They signed him to, I think, a minor league deal, and that came with the spring training invite. He made his major league debut in 2019 with the Marlins, and then played with the Blue Jays and again with the Marlins in 2020. Faced him in that opening weekend series with the Blue Jays, and Cash had noted that he had given him some hard time. So you don't have a ton right now on the left-handed side of that bullpen. I mean, you got, it looks like Ryan Sheriff, Brian Moran could be a guy as well out of the bullpen, Cody Reed, and Jeffrey Springs. And that looks to be about it. So if he can prove that he can get lefties out at a high level, you could see him being a part of that major league roster at some point, and kind of an Adam Kolarek type potentially, which you always like to see. The Sidewinders are always kind of tricky, it looks like. And then the final note that I have, Austin Meadows and Sasugo, they both have caught attention for cutting weight and getting a quicker bat. Austin Meadows is down. He cut, I think, 10 or 15 pounds this offseason. He's back down to his 2019 weight, which is what we've all been kind of hoping for, is his return to that 2019 level, and that would be huge for this team. So hopefully kind of that loss of weight was what he was missing, and he said he's lighter on his feet, which is good defensively, which he was already good defensively last year, and a quicker bat. He seemed late on pitches a little bit too much last year. So to get him back to that state, I think is huge. So we'll look forward to seeing that. So right now we are going to take a break. Just to let you know, the only game probably that you care about is at the end of 2 periods. The Lightning and Hurricanes are tied at 1. So on the other side of the break, we'll talk a little more Rays, some AL East, some Lightning, some Bucks, and then taking your calls at 877-566-1020. That's the number to call during the break. We'll be right back.
Hey, sports fans. William's currently in the can, but he'll be right back. We're currently on a commercial break, so don't touch that dial. Remember, you can call us at 352-639-0036 or drop us a line on Twitter at WHBCStream to tell us what's on your mind. We want to talk sports. We want to get unruly. We want you to tell us what you think so we can argue. Anyway, when all that's said and done, please stay tuned for William's world-famous Around the XFL podcast and other projects that he's currently got in the works. Please visit WHBCStream.com, and thanks again for listening in.
HBC. And at 8:59, we are back on the William Haynes Show. Probably maybe 10, 15 minutes left of the program, depending on if we get any callers. If you are interested in calling the show, you want to talk Rays, Bucks, Lightning, whatever, the number to call is 877-566-1020. Again, 877-566-1020. Internationally toll free. Just give us a call. We had someone call in yesterday, so yes, we do know that the number still works after the off season, and we could talk if you want. One thing I've left out before the break for Mark Tumpkin on Twitter, so it's not super official, subject to change, of course, but the probable pitchers for the first spring training games on Sunday against the Atlanta Braves. They'll have Ellis, who I'm not familiar with, Hunter Strickland, Springs, who they acquired from Boston, and Andrew Kittredge, who's back from, I think it was elbow, or I think it was elbow surgery that ended his season last year. And then on Monday against the Twins, it'll be Glasnow for the first time. Trevor Richards, Enns, Head, and Rosenberg. So it looks like some guys that they just want to get a look at, but Glasnow and Trevor Richards mainly. Tuesday against Boston, Michael Wacha, David Hess, the other guy, I believe, in the Boston trade, Ryan Thompson, Peter Fairbanks, Ryan Sheriff, and Chris Mazza. Mazza was the other guy. It was Mazza and Springs in the Boston trade, and Hess, I think, was from somewhere else. Definitely going to have to learn and pick up those new guys during spring training. On Wednesday against the Pirates, McClanahan and Fleming. And then on Thursday against the Twins, Ryan Yarbrough and Patino. So it looks like by the end of the first week of spring training, we'll see just about everybody, at least kind of the main guys. And some, after the fifth inning, you could probably turn off your TV set or your radio, whatever. It's just guys, that they just want to get time or see. There may be some Wander Franco sightings. Hopefully that would be cool to see him in spring training. I remember last year in spring training before COVID, Randy Arozarena, whom they had acquired from the Cardinals, I guess right before spring training for Matthew Libator, and he had played really well in spring training, and Dave Wills was saying, during spring training and during the regular season before he got called up, that, he maybe a precursor like that could happen maybe with Franco or such. Who knows? So that is about how, and again, subject to change, but that's how it's looking right now as to who's going to pitch in and who is not. Again, I'll just give you the number one more time, 877-566-1020 if you want to talk Rays. Just looking how the roster looks right now. It's really full up. Again, they've got 77 guys, and they're going to have to cut down to 26, I believe. The maximum pitchers, unless they remove that maximum, is 14. So at that point, you're looking the rotation, the five-man rotation, if you will. It'll be Glasnow, Yarbrough, Chris Archer, Michael Wacha, and Rich Hill. So that's five right there. And then you've got your regular relievers, Nick Anderson, Castillo, Fairbanks, and then it kind of depends. You got Cody Reed, Chaz Rowe, Ryan Sheriff, Ryan Thompson. So that's seven right there in addition to the five. So that gets you to 12. So then if you want two more, you get a guy like Jeffrey Springs, and then for a bulk, maybe Trevor Richards and Josh Fleming, if I hadn't already mentioned. One of those guys. Guys we're going to get a look at, Chris Mazza and Jeffrey Springs from Boston. Maybe one of those makes it to the opening day roster. Mazza, a right-hander. Springs, a left-hander. Cody Reed is back. He only pitched a couple of games for the Rays last year. We acquired him in a trade from the Reds, and he got injured shortly thereafter, but did look good. He's a lefty, so definitely going to need lefties. It looks like we're a little bit short on those, so he might get an edge there. Again, Trevor Richards and Josh Fleming are your two kind of bulk guys. Probably Ryan Thompson will be back. Brendan McKay, he's not pitching right now, I don't believe. Just hitting right now, but a guy that was a pitcher in 2019 before that shoulder surgery. I don't think he'll be doing any real throwing in spring training. Colin McHugh, which I didn't mention. Colin McHugh, I would imagine, if you have two bulk guys in your roster, in addition to, a 5-man rotation, it's going to be, pick two of these three, Fleming, McHugh, and Richards. I would imagine Trevor Richards is probably the odd man out, maybe. Josh Fleming, if he still has options left, you could definitely send Fleming down and do Richards and McHugh. I thought Fleming pitched well last year, but if they want to give him some more time in AAA Durham, now that the minor leagues are back up and running, you certainly could do that. And then Brent Honeywell is going to be pitching for the first time, I guess, in a real game since like 2017, so that'll be good to see. I'm not sure where he fits in, if he's a starter, if he's a bulk guy, if he's a one-inning reliever. I don't know. That's kind of a TBD type situation. And then Luis Patino, who I think could be ready to start on opening day if they want him to, on the roster. They may decide send him down to Durham because, again, they've got the 5 starters, which is, I think, what they see Patino as eventually, being a starting pitcher. So he'll probably be, if I had to guess, in AAA to start the year because you do have those 5 starters. At the catcher position right now, it looks like all they have is Zunino and Mejia, but I know they also have Kevin Smith. You're going to probably keep 2 of those 3. I would imagine Zunino and Mejia. Mejia, he's listed as a switch hitter, which is good. He's got a really strong arm, is good defensively, but is not a great hitter, so I guess him and Zunino are both kind of the same in that boat, so we'll get a look at them. In the infield right now, I've got Adames, Brasso, Bruhan, Choi, Yandy, Lau, Kevin Padlo, Taylor Walls, and Joey Wendell. They could get away with having maybe 5 or 6 infielders. Obviously, Willie at shortstop, Choi for first base, Brandon Lau for second. That's your infield right there. And then third base, probably Mike Brasso will start on opening day at third base. So that's your 4 right there. And then backups would include Wendell, who can play second, short, and third. Yandy, who can play first and third. That would get you to 6. So if you want to have 6, that would probably be who I would go with: Adames, Brasso, Choi, Yandy, Lau, and Wendell for right now. And then in the outfield, who they've got, they have a lot of outfielders, at least in spring training. They've got 7 that I can see. Arozarena, Kierme, Josh Lowe, who's not going to be ready yet for the big leagues, but he's in spring training. Margot, Phillips, Tsugo, and Meadows, and one of those will probably be a pretty consistent DH, I would imagine. Opening day, I would imagine Arozarena in left, Kierme in center, and Meadows in right. So that would leave you with basically 3 extra outfielders. Or no, Tsugo's not an outfielder; he's just listed there. But you would have 5 outfielders at that point, Margot and Phillips. So if you go with 6 infielders, 5 outfielders, that gets you to 11 minus 26. That would leave you with 15 pitchers, which I don't think they're going to be able to do. So you could add, you would be fine with Tsugo in there as well. You could have Margot and Phillips as well as Tsugo, and then even, I guess, an extra infielder if you wanted to, if you're going to do just 2 catchers. So that's how the roster looks right now. And then we'll say I had the AL East stuff if we wanted to talk about it, but I'll probably preview that as we get closer to the regular season. I'm going to do what I did last season. Do the over-under win totals for all 30 teams, do the, how the playoff bracket is going to be, do the predictions for each division, and we'll probably do the AL East, just a day just on that, because it's going to be challenging. And, of course, we're not going to be playing them. We'll be playing Boston, but the Yankees and the Blue Jays, who we usually will see, we won't. The Yankees in Tampa and the Blue Jays in Dunedin. And the Blue Jays also will start the season in Dunedin, so that'll be interesting. So we'll get to that a little bit later. Something I also want to talk about, the Tampa Bay Lightning. They won 3-0 last night, a shutout of the Hurricanes. That was their second straight win against Carolina after losing, I guess, the last two against them. The shutout for Vazzy. Also, Ross Colton getting, basically it was the game-winning goal to make it 1-0 in his first NHL game, his debut, I should say. So that was good to see him do that. Was, a late pick in, I think it was like 2016 or 17, but that he can make a contribution. Vasilevsky has been playing really well as of late. I think it's McElhinney in net right now, if I'm not mistaken. It is still 1-1 with about 15 minutes left in the third period. So if you want to, you'll definitely be able to catch the rest of that game after this show is over. They have been playing really well right now. Looking at the standings, it's going to be I thought it would be a little easier, but what are they calling it? I guess the Southern Division, or they're calling it the Central. In points right now, the Lightning are in second place. The Panthers have 26 points. Lightning have 25. The Hurricanes also have 25, and Chicago has 24. So they've come a long way back. And then it's the Columbus with 21 points, the Stars with 16 points, Nashville 16. So it really is kind of a 3-team race for first place. Not that it really matters. The first 4 teams in every division will make the playoffs. So the Lightning, they're going to make the playoffs either way at 12-4-1. Even if they lose tonight, they're still in fantastic shape. And then looking at the schedule they have upcoming, they've got 2 against Dallas. They were supposed to play Dallas early in the season. That got postponed because of COVID, and then they were supposed to play them last weekend, and because of the power outages and all that crazy stuff that's going on right now in that area, those games got postponed as well. So they've got 2 upcoming against the Stars, then 3 in a row against Chicago, which you would think would be easy games. They may have handled them on opening night, in the game after that, 5-1 and 5-2. But they've come on strong, about just tied the Lightning in points almost. 3 against the Blackhawks, and then you've got a nice stretch where it's 2 against Nashville, 2 in Detroit, who's the worst team in the Central, who we have not seen this. Yes, we have. We're 2-0 against Detroit, and then 2 against Nashville, who has played us a little bit tricky, but we're actually 4-0 against them this season. So, and then you get 1 against Dallas and 2 more against Chicago, and then you get back into a stretch where you're playing Florida and Carolina and all that. But you're only playing the same, 5 or 6 teams anyway. But a chance for the Lightning to really stack some points there, and it looks like I think there was a goal in the Lightning game. I don't actually have it up. So, and then on the Bucs side, not a whole lot stuff going on. There's a report that the Bucs would love to extend Brady's contract. I would assume just by 1 year. He's under contract, $25 million next year to play for the Bucs. He says he would consider playing through 45, but if they signed him to a deal through 2022, that would be his age 45 season. So a 1 year extension might be all that there is. I doubt they would do 2 or 3 years. That would seem kind of a little absurd that you would want to pay 47-year-old Tom Brady. I don't know. JPP had surgery on his left knee. It was the same knee that he had surgery on in July to clean up cartilage that was causing discomfort. So that doesn't look to be a big deal. And then I mentioned Tom Brady had knee surgery, but he'll probably be ready for training camp. And really, the story, and it is kind of funny to look how far this team has come. The story for the Bucs will be, how are they going to retain all this talent? Before, previous years in the offseason, it was, how are we going to accumulate talent? How are we going to get good players? Now it's just, how are we going to keep them? Out of the Shaq Barrett, Chris Godwin, I guess even Ryan Suckup, the kicker, they're going to have trouble keeping all these guys. Leonard Fournette is probably going to be gone. Levante David is also a free agent, so they've got a ton. They're going to franchise tag one of them. I would probably franchise tag Chris Godwin instead of Shaq Barrett. If I had to let one guy go out of those three, I would rather keep Godwin and Levante David and let Shaq Barrett go. But that's just me. I was on that train last year as well. I didn't think Shaq Barrett was going to be a big deal to keep, but he was big in the postseason, had 8 sacks in the regular season, and then came on even stronger in the postseason. I remember Green Bay had a couple sacks that were big. I could imagine them also franchise tagging Barrett and maybe trying to get a deal with Godwin, but one of those guys is going to go out the door most likely. It's not enough money to go around. It looks like Gronk might be difficult to keep. I wouldn't worry about Antonio Brown. I would let him walk. Ndamukong Suh would probably have to take a pay cut to stay. And then, as I mentioned, Leonard Fournette is probably on the way out. Just as good as he played last year, especially in the postseason, there's going to be a team that's willing to give him money. So we'll probably see him out the door at some point during the offseason. And I did miss it, but Yanni Gord, his 5th goal of the season, assisted by Hedman. And McElhaney, the goalie, getting his first assist of the season to make it 2-1 with 11:32 to play. So that's fun. And then really last thing, Vincent Jackson, I guess his family decided to donate his brain to Boston University CTE Center. I guess there's been some new stuff reported on his death, but I'm not going to get into that. Just kind of let that be as it may, and let their family kind of deal with that. And as we mentioned last week, a big loss, and he'll certainly be missed. But we'll find out if they decide to make it public whether or not he had CTE. That's going to take some months before we get information on that. But we will get that information, I guess, potentially at some point. So with that said, first spring training game on Sunday. That'll be fun. Playing the Braves at 1 o'clock. They've got games Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. They're playing all week. Baseball season is back to play every day of the week. I love it. We'll probably be back, let's say, next Thursday. So we'll have quite a few games to talk about. Put it in pencil. Don't put it in pen. But Thursday at 8 o'clock. So we'll have some games to talk about. Finally, that'll be good, and hopefully take some more calls then. Thinking about trying to expand the WHBC empire, maybe do some simulcasting on Twitch and stuff, getting some more listeners, some more callers. Good show tonight. Thanks for listening in. We'll see you next Thursday.
Sports Radio 101.9 FM and Sports Radio 66. The Fan.
HBC.